Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Sky Tonight Live. I'm Rod Kennedy from the Casper Planetarium. Tonight's talk will be about double stars, where you can find them, how to identify them, how to look at them, things like that. So let's go ahead and go over to our simulator. So here we are in our simulated sky, and the time is set for right about now, 7 p.m. And so let's go ahead and run time forward until we get a nice dark sky. So let's just speed up time a little bit. Let's make sure that we know the simulator's listening here. There we go. There we go. Okay, so we're going to go forward past sunset until the sky gets nice and dark. There we go. And it looks like I have all my labels up. Let's turn some of those off. Let's pause time there. Okay, gotta find how I turned that on. There we go. Okay, that's better. All right, so here we are under a nice dark sky, and I'm going to go ahead and turn on I'm going to go ahead and turn on all the constellation lines and all the constellation labels. Okay, that way we can find our way around a little bit, and we can I'm not searching for the constellation and the star at the same time. So let's go ahead and get started here. One of the most common questions we get at the planetarium is, especially from new telescope owners, is what do I look at? Well, the obvious thing is, if you own a brand new telescope, the first and possibly most obvious thing is the moon, particularly when it's at a phase that's easy to look at. Everything from up to a gibbous moon. So there's the moon. There is planets. So that question usually comes from people who've looked at the moon, they've looked at the planets, or there's not any planets visible at a time when they want to observe. Right now, 3 planets are observable in the early morning sky, but if you don't want to get up with your telescope at that time, your choice is Venus right now. We're in a waning moon phase right now, so what do you look at once you've looked at the moon, once you've looked at the planets? What else is there? Well, most what we call deep sky objects are really hard to find with a telescope, particularly for beginners. And also, if you're observing under city lights, deep sky objects are really, really, really hard to find. And then once you find them, they're fuzzy blobs. And so if you eliminate those, what else is there to look at? Well, the next thing is double stars. And double stars are a favorite for astronomers and telescope observers because it's kind of fun to see if you can see a star that looks like one star to the naked eye, what it looks like with a telescope or a pair of binoculars. A pair of binoculars also works really well, but you want to make sure you have them on a tripod. And most binoculars, the hinge in between at the front, there's a little cap that'll pop off, and then there's this little adapter that will screw in there that will allow you to set it up on a camera tripod. So let's go ahead and look at some double stars here. So this is our sky tonight at about 9 p.m. Okay, about 9 p.m. And I'm going to go ahead and pause time here because I don't want some of our constellations to go below the horizon before we can see them. Okay, so let's look up in the sky for Ursa Major, the Great Bear, or the Big Bear. Now, most of us are more commonly look for the asterism that we call the Big Dipper. And here's the Big Dipper right here. It's the bowl and handle of Ursa Major. Well, the brights, there's all kinds of cool stuff to look at in Ursa Major, but we want to look at the star right here called Mizar. Now, Mizar was one of the first double stars ever to be discovered in 1650. This is one of the first. This was the first time somebody had looked at a double star that wasn't a cluster. And so, if we zoom in on Mizar a little bit, this is one of those stars that used to be an eye test. Under dark skies, you can actually see its companion, called Alcor. Now, it's interesting to note that it's hard to see with the naked eye, but with a pair of binoculars or telescope, they easily split. But then if you zoom in a little bit, if you keep zooming in, you discover that Mizar itself is a double star. Now, we notice a little bit of color variation here. This is one of the fun and challenging things about looking at double stars, is can you detect differences in color? Differences in color indicate differences in temperature. So Mizar is a double star. In this same part of the sky, if we look at Alcor, now I don't know if our simulator will do this, but Alcor itself, yeah, I've got my star settings set up a little too high. Alcor is a little bit, but Alcor and Mizar, if you look at them with a pair of binoculars or a telescope, you don't see 2 stars, you don't see 4 stars, you see more like 6 or 8. And they range in magnitude from 2 to 4. They're about 78 light years away. And they're really, this is the best place to start because it's really easy to find Mizar. It's at the bend of the Big Dipper's handle right here. Actually, let's see if we can turn on the asterism line for there's the Big Dipper right there, that pink. Okay. Now, from there, what we want to look at is the next good double star to look at. So here we've got the curve of the Big Dipper's handle. If tonight you went out there and went a little bit towards the east, there's kind of a little bright star right here, kind of by itself in a dark area of sky. This is the star CorCaroli. It is the brightest star in a constellation called Canes Venatici. And if we zoom in on it, we see that it resolves into a pair that one is a white F-type star, a white A-type star, and the other one is an F-type star. A little bit hotter than our own sun. Now, the word CorCaroli means the heart of Charles. Depending on which historical input you listen to, it is in honor of King Charles I of England. And this one is a great little double star to pick out with a small telescope. I remember the first time I saw this one, I was stargazing with my daughter, and I pointed the telescope there and had her look, and I didn't tell her what she was going to see. And she says, "Oh, that star has a little buddy." And there you go. So what a great way to introduce your kids to a double star. And unfortunately, Canes Venatici really only has 2 stars in it, so it's a little bit harder to find. But CorCaroli is easy enough to find. Let's back our volume off just a little bit there. Okay. Now, let's back out a little bit now, and let's back out a little bit. Those are a couple that are in the north, and stars in the north are always going to be a little easier because they are what we call circumpolar. They're always visible all night, every night. So now let's turn around and face towards the west. We're going to zoom in on the constellation Auriga. Now, Auriga is really a wintertime constellation. To find Auriga, look in the direction of the sunset. Look for the constellation Orion the Hunter, easily marked by the 3 stars of his belt. The V shape of Taurus the Bull. The planet Venus, which is really, really, really easy to spot. And then go up and to the right, and you see the star Capella. Now, Capella is a very, very bright, easy to find star, and it marks this sort of this hexagon shape that is Auriga. Well, if we go from Capella over this way, it's almost straight up from the planet Venus. This is the star Mahasim. And if we center on that one, this one is a little bit of a challenge in small telescopes. But if we zoom in on it, there's lots of additional stars in here. This one's a challenge in small telescopes because the components are really pretty close together. I have my settings a little high here, so it's hard to split them in my software. But this one has is described, the components are described as kind of a blue and kind of a gold. One's magnitude 2, which we can see with the naked eye, and the other one is magnitude 7. Now, if I'm throwing the word magnitude around, magnitude is just a way of describing the brightness of a star. And a first magnitude star is the brightest. A second magnitude is less bright. Third magnitude is less bright than that. And an easy way to remember that is think about the passengers of the Titanic. First class was more important than second class, which is more important than third class, etc. So magnitude, when we're talking about double stars, magnitude, we typically talk about the magnitude of the brighter one, which is usually easy to see, and the magnitude of the second one, the companion, which is usually not bright enough to see with the naked eye. Okay, so let's back up from Auriga. Now, Auriga is above and to the right of where Orion is. If we go straight up above Orion, we see 2 bright stars side by side, Castor and Pollux, in the constellation Gemini the Twins. Well, the star Castor is another cool double star. And if we zoom in here, let's zoom in a little bit. Now, this one, there we go. We can split that one using the software. Now, there's 2 more stars down here, but often what we see, there's 2 kinds of what we call double stars. There are true binary star systems where the 2 stars orbit around each other, or there's what we call optical doubles, which are stars that look like they're close together, but it's only because they're along the same light of sight from one as we see them from here on Earth. Well, this the companion of Castor and its companion star orbit around each other about once every 400 years. Now think about that. To put that in perspective, the dwarf planet Pluto orbits around the sun once every roughly 254 years. So that means these stars are about double that far apart. The bright one, Castor, is magnitude 1.9. The companion here is 2.9. And they're about 52 light years away from Earth. Now, I pointed out the double stars in Auriga and Gemini because as we go forward from now, as we start getting later into spring and early into summer, these constellations are going to be lost in the glare of the setting sun. So we're not going to be able to see them. We won't be able to see them again until late next fall. Well, now let's turn towards the two stars, Castor and Pollux, form Gemini the Twins. Okay, if you go towards the east, we see the sort of backward question mark that marks Leo the Lion. If you're interested more in Leo, we've got 2 video podcasts about Leo. One about the constellation itself, one about the star Regulus. And in between is a constellation called Cancer the Crab. And it really doesn't look much like a crab. And it is made of really, really, really faint stars. Now, there is a star cluster right here. It sort of looks like an upside-down Y. There is a star cluster here in the center of this that we talked about in another podcast called the Beehive Star Cluster. Now, if we find the bright star that makes the Y and go up towards the zenith, this star right here, this star at the end of the Y, kind of find Castor and Pollux and go east. This star is called Zubina. Its magnitude is about 4.2, which means it's hard to see. It's pretty dim. But its companion here, Zubina, is kind of a gold color. Its companion is kind of a blue color. Another pretty easy one, and its magnitude is about 6.6. So this is a pretty easy one to find with your binoculars. So let's back out a little bit more. Okay. By the way, star clusters are also a lot of fun to, if you're out with your telescope in the next few days, have a look at the Beehive Star Cluster down here in Cancer. It's a great one to look at with a pair of binoculars or a small telescope. So let's cruise on over to Leo the Lion, a favorite of us here at the planetarium, obviously, because this is our logo, if you didn't know that. So the star Regulus marks the heart of the lion. The star Denebola marks his tail. Actually, let's turn on the artwork there. Okay, marks his tail. Right there at his neck is the constellation Algebra. And if we were to look at it, this binary pair is about 126 light years from Earth. This one was first discovered by Sir William Herschel. And the interesting thing about these two is they both appear kind of yellow in color. Now, let's see. Oh, there we go. Now, on my simulator, it looks kind of blue and kind of yellow. But one is a G-type. The main one, Algebra, is a G-type star, very much like our sun. And the companion is a K-type star, meaning it's cooler. K-type stars are a little bit cooler than G-type stars. This one is easy to find because you just go up from Regulus and go in a little bit. Go up to the chest of the lion and then go back to his neck. Now, let's go ahead and let's turn our direction. Let's turn towards the east. Now, there's two constellations that are really easy to find in the eastern, just rising in the east. Boötes and Virgo the Maiden. So the way you find them is when you find the Big Dipper, follow the curve of the Big Dipper's handle, follow the arc, and follow the arc to Arcturus. The curve of the Big Dipper's handle points to Arcturus. From there, you can speed on to Spica in the constellation Virgo the Maiden. Now, in Virgo, Spica is really the only star that is really super, super bright. The rest are a little bit faint. But to find the double star in Virgo, I'm going to have to zoom in a little bit. There we go. If we find Spica and we go straight up from Spica, we see the star Porrima. And Porrima is in honor of the goddess of prophecy. Now, if we zoom, I don't know if this one's a challenging one because it's almost, the components are almost too close together for small telescopes or binoculars, but it's worth the challenge to see if you can split them. That's the challenge most backyard astronomers aim for, is can you split or resolve double stars? Small telescopes like the one I have that don't gather a lot of light, don't have a lot of don't have quite as high a magnification, are going to be a little bit harder to split stars like this than larger telescopes with a larger aperture. So Porrima is kind of a challenge, but it's worth seeing if you can find it. Now let's turn our attention to the last constellation, in this part of the sky. Let's go to Boötes the Herdsman. Now, he doesn't look much like a herdsman. The herdsman looks more like an ice cream cone to some of us. Arcturus is the base of the cone. And if you go towards the north, he's rising in the east. So if you go towards the north, there's the star Izar. Izar, the main star is magnitude 2.5. The companion is about 4.9. We zoom in a little bit. There we go. This one is also kind of a challenge. The main star is a K-type star. The companion is an A-type star, meaning it's white. And whether or not you detect any color is another kind of fun challenge. Because when we're looking into the dark, the color receptors in our eyes don't react quite as quickly as those designed to pick up light. But those are that's another possible double star that you can find in Boötes the Herdsman. Now, this is just a few of the very basic ones. Obviously, there are tons more. One of the interesting things that Galileo discovered when he first turned his telescope towards the heavens in 1610 was that there are stars that the telescope can see that we can't see with the naked eye. They simply are either too dim, that's typically the case, or they're too far away. Either they're not luminous enough, meaning they don't give off enough light, or they're too far away, or some combination. And he discovered that looking at what looks like a blank spot in the sky with his telescope, he could see lots and lots and lots of stars. Now, this software I'm using here is a software called Stellarium. Stellarium is a free open source software. Just look up stellarium.com. It's really great because, as you can see here, when I click on a star, it'll give me some information about it and tell me if it's a double star, what its magnitude is. There's all kinds of cool information I can get about it. I can click on some stars that are just stars. Some of them are variable stars. Okay, we'll do a thing about variable stars in another episode. I don't know. This is Cygnus. I don't know. This one is probably too. This one is too far away, too close. It says it's a double. Whoa, backed out too far. Sorry about that. But these are some of the easier to find double stars. Now, if you're interested in how you find other double stars, you can download software like this. Or the other thing you can do, and I found this resource the other day, okay, this is the website for the International Astronomical Union. Now, unfortunately, I can't scroll down the page here, but this is its page on the constellations. I'll make sure I post this link in the comments section where you can go there. If you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you can find a star chart for each individual constellation. For example, here is the one for Leo the Lion. Actually, let's make that a little bigger so we can see that a little better. So here's a star chart for Leo the Lion. And it shows us the boundary. Everything in light gray is outside the boundary of the constellation. It shows us the names of the stars. It shows us some of the deep sky objects that are available. And typically, double stars are usually indicated either by two circles more or less on top of one another, or a circle with a line through the middle of it. And so you can see there with algebra, you can see there's a big circle and a small circle. If there's two small circles like that, it means they're close enough together to be easily seen. If it's a circle with a line through the center of it, it's a little harder to see. But this is, star charts like this are great because it shows you where you can look to find objects to point your telescope at. It really depends on making sure you get to know the sky, learn the constellations. One way to do that is using our star chart, our April star chart that I posted earlier in the week. And learn to know the sky, learn to know where things are. And then star charts like this one let us find our way around. Okay, so that's a little bit about how to look for and find double stars. If anybody has any questions, feel free to type them into the comments box. I'll be happy to answer them. I can go back to our Stellarium page here. If there's constellations you'd like me to point out, or if there's if you'd like to know if there's any double stars in any constellation that you're familiar with that you'd like to know more about, feel free to ask. It's Q&A time. Feel free to ask. I'd like to thank everybody for popping. Let me thank everybody first for popping in. But so, questions that people would like to ask. All right. Well, I will, if there are no questions, I would like to thank everybody for coming. This video will be recorded. It will be on our Facebook page. I will also post it to our YouTube channel. Be sure to follow that. And then if we'll do another one of these next Thursday night, and we'll see where we get to. Hopefully we get to be back in the planetarium sometime soon, because things like this are really, really a lot more interesting and a lot more fun to be seen under the planetarium dome. So make sure you follow us on our Facebook page. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Keep an eye out for cool science articles. Keep an eye out for podcasts. As always, if you have questions, feel free to post the questions to our Facebook page. One of our staff will be happy to answer them, and we just want to get everybody excited about astronomy. All right. If there are no questions, don't forget, I will post the link for the International Astronomical Union's constellation page. There's a couple other resources that you can use to find constellations. Another one is called Heavens Above. There's Heavens Above is another website to find things, and we will be sure to make sure everyone has access to that. Oh, Ferris, thank you for saying that. You'll have to, when you get. We just have friends move to Dayton, so we'd like to thank you. Ashley had a question. I didn't see it. Oh, okay. Oh, there we go. Apparently, I don't see access to all the questions. That's kind of interesting. All right. Alrighty. Well, we'd like to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Thank you so much. We will see you next time around. Clear skies, everybody.